Hey everybody, welcome back to the Field of Greens podcast presented by Northwoods Whitetails Seed Company. I'm John Comp, owner of Northwoods Whitetails Seed Company. I want to say hey to everybody on YouTube watching and everybody listening on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Before I go any further, make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. This is Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think there's a couple other platforms, but those are the two main ones. And then obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, if you're not already, hit that subscription button because the next month we're going to be doing a lot of these customer questions. Okay, and that's what we're going to do today. We see this every year at this time, right after the opening of Michigan firearms season, which is November 15th. We get Minnesota was open. I believe they're closed now. Wisconsin. Now we're doing this on Tuesday the 19th. Okay. And Wisconsin's firearms is right around the corner. And then there's Iowa, Illinois. But we really start to see this time of year. And then right after Thanksgiving, we'll literally get hundreds of questions. Okay. People are in their deer stands. And I encourage this. Okay. If you've got a question, you're sitting in your stand. I do this a lot. Ask that question. If you've got cell service, you can northwoodswhitetails.com. You can check that link in the lower right. There's a little icon you can click on, and you can ask a question. It comes right to my phone. You can get a hold of us with email. If you go on our website, northwoodswhitetails.com, my cell phone number is there. If you've got a question, you're just sitting there, hey, I wondered this. Send us a message, okay? I don't think there's a lot of companies you can text from your deer stand, and there's a good chance you're going to get a response while you're still in your deer stand. But what I want to do, because we're getting so many, I mean, we literally have 100 questions we can answer right now. Obviously, we're not going to do all today, but we're going to probably do that for the next month to month and a half. Albeit we're also going to start to talk to some of these wonderful partners we work with. But we want to start answering questions, starting with the most frequently asked ones right now. But we want to go through, like I said, we got about 100 questions we want to go through. And I'm going to try to keep this about a half hour or less, okay? But anyway, if you've got a question, by all means, get a hold of us and we'll try to answer it. We try to answer it personally, but we like to answer a lot of these questions that are asked a lot by different people. Okay, and so let's get into that. The number one question we're getting in the last 48, 52, 72 hours is your HD food plot screen an annual or is it a perennial? Okay, people are asking about screening. They're asking what are perennials, what are annuals, what do you guys sell? Okay, so the HD screen, that tall corn-looking screen, that is an annual. You have to plant that every year. We've got directions that come with it. It's 4 pounds, 4-pound bag we sell it in. That's a half-acre bag, okay? And it's got complete planting instruction with it. The HD food plot screen, as well as the Egyptian wheat that we sell, those are annuals, have to be planted every year. Now, the perennials we have for screening is RC switchgrass. The number one switchgrass right now, by far, for whitetail land managers is RC Big Rock because it grows so fast. It's got great standability. I've seen some tests Roger's been running up in Canada. That is a great perennial screen. Now, people talk about miscanthus. I don't mess with miscanthus. I think there's a lot of people that have tried it in the northern quarter of the country, the northern states, the upper tier states, and it's not been very successful. I think a lot of people in the central plains, central states, central Midwest, they're getting it to work. But the two screens that we sell here, annuals, HD screen, there's nothing like it on the market. We've got it standing right now side by side with somebody else's, and there other companies are really breaking down heavy right now. So HD screen is an annual, switchgrass or perennial. All right, the next couple ones we want to talk about the actual seed itself. A lot of people ask, how do I store seed? We have a climate controlled environment here. Okay, it's always in our shop. It's never colder than 56 degrees. Maybe at night we turn it down. And then during the day, I don't think it gets over 65. So we've got a climate controlled environment, low humidity. Our seed here, we just leave it on the shelf. Now, if I had some personal seed, I like personally a Rubbermaid bin in the house somewhere. Again, a climate controlled environment. Some people say put it in the freezer. Well, I don't know if I want to do that with something like oats, like buckwheat that does get frost killed. Okay, I don't know if that will work or not. I've never tried that experiment. I don't If you've got something like that dies with frost, by all means, man, I don't know if I'm putting it in a freezer. But I don't like it sitting out in a storage barn or a shed, all winter long, and then in the spring it thaws, and then it freezes, and then there's all summer long it's exposed to humidity. I think that damages germination on the seed. But if you're going to store extra seed, my particular recommendation to folks, even if it's a 50-pound bag of switchgrass, put it in a Rubbermaid bin because you don't want rodents or anything getting at it. I'm not saying there's rodents in your house, but you might not make the better half happy if she opens her closet, or he, and there's a bag of switchgrass sitting there. Okay, so let's not do that. If you're going to store seed over the winter, put it in a Rubbermaid bin, Tupperware bin, plastic sealed bin. Put it in your house somewhere, out of sight, out of mind, until it's time to plant. Okay, how long is seed good for? And I think a lot of that has to do with storage. Okay, like I said, we've stored it here, and it never sees freezing, and never sees high humidity. So if you keep it in a climate controlled environment, I believe it'll last for years. But it depends on, we found like those bigger seeds. The one that I've seen the worst germination on, is we don't deal with them much, is soybeans. I've seen soybeans lose 80% germination over the year. But a lot of that has been, these big seed buys, the giveaways, like I don't know if it's the National Wild Turkey Federation or somebody. I've been involved in those a couple of times, and the germination rate on year-old soybeans was absolutely horrible. Okay, I thought, that's just my experience. Okay, there's a lot of guys that have success with that, but the experience I've had with some of these, free soybeans has been terrible, and I believe it's because of the way they're stored. So we've run some tests with brassicas, and a lot of the times that what we plant is just stuff that's been left over. I've got my own shelf. A lot of stuff that we plant is year-old stuff, and then we're always doing germ tests. We've had partners test, I think like the HD screen, 4-year-old test, germ perfectly, did great. So I don't recommend it. We don't do that. What we try to do is sell out at everything every year and have fresh stuff, when we hit the ground running in the spring. But as long as you store it properly, I think you can get 2 to 3 years and not have much of a problem with germination rate. But if you have it sitting out in your shed, like right now, and it's going to freeze all winter and then be exposed to humidity all summer in 2025, you might have a germination issue. So I think the better you store your seed, your germ rates are going to go up. Right now, how late can I plant rye? I think that's going to depend on where you're at. We've got a lot of rain here in Michigan the first 16 days of November, and I'm actually starting to see rye germinate. We've got unseasonably warm weather. I think today it was like 55, and I'm seeing rye that we threw on the ground 6-7 weeks ago. Some of it that did not germinate, threw root and died. Whatever's left, it's starting to germ right now. But if you're down in southern Illinois, Kentucky, Georgia, by all means you can plant right now. I think as long as you're getting we're seeing a lot of wet weather go through the country right now, and I think if the ground's moist and you get one rain on it, I think it's going to take off pretty good. So up here where I'm at, the top quarter part of the country, I don't think I'd be planting rye anymore. But if you're in, like I said, south of Illinois, I think you got a couple more weeks yet. If you're in Georgia, North Carolina, that strip down there, I think you guys got probably another 3 to 5 weeks yet, as long as you're not getting freezing nights and it's below 30 during the day. I think that's when rye just shuts down. And the people say, well, it'll germinate at 35 degrees. You're exactly right. It will germinate. But the thing is, in that cold weather, it grows so slow that it might take 4 weeks to see what you would normally see in 1 week in normal weather. So it's very weather dependent where you are in the country, but you can still plant, and you're probably in the southern half of the country. When do I lime? Okay, and I'm not going to talk about our liquid lime right now. I'll talk about the pelletized, the egg lime, and stuff like that. The times I like to lime, depending on how much I have to move the pH, I always like a spring lime because you seem to get so much moisture what's going to help get that, broken down. Let's talk about pelletized lime. I like to do in the spring, okay? But then I also like to add some when I'm doing my fall plantings. I kind of do both. I like to break it up a little bit, and I try to put it all down at once, because that spring lime, you're going to see that benefit in the fall. The fall lime, you're going to see it in the spring. And we always believe something needs to be planted in those food plots, even if it's just a soil builder. So I like to break it up, especially if you have to move that number a lot. Now, if we're doing our liquid limes, obviously we're doing a lot of it in the fall. But if you're doing spring planting, you can do it as well. Okay, so I like to break it up, spring plantings and fall plantings. Basically, my thought process is, if I'm putting seed in the ground and I need to move that pH number, I'm putting lime down too, whether it's liquid or pelletized. So in your fall forage, the Northwoods Fall Forage Blend, what am I seeing come back in the spring? Okay, and that's mostly rye, because we do recommend a rye overseed pending weather, pending rain. And there's a little bit of wheat component in there as well. So you're not going to see the oats come back. You might see them if you're, way down south. We had folks in Florida buying this fall forage, and those oats might come back. Same thing with the peas. But, let's just say the northern half of the country, mostly what you're going to see is the cereal rye and the winter wheat. And I really like that. First and foremost, deer food when they need it the most. Okay, there's a lot of food right now in our food plots. Not much left in the woods. There's a lot of woody browse, but when these deer come off of that hard winter, anywhere you're at, I think winter, it's a stressful period. But you're looking at that, March, April time frame, when these deer are really starting to look for nutrition to rebuild. Bucks, obviously, their antlers and their skeletal system. Does are going to start nursing fawns soon, and they're carrying fawns. Anytime you can put 10 to 15% protein into their body on top of their normal diet, that to me is a phenomenal bonus to those deer. So that's what you're seeing with our fall forage, the cereal rye and some of the winter wheat component. Now, we get asked this a lot. Do I have to inoculate your clover products? No, you don't. Okay. A couple thoughts. I see with social media, and I think we're going to cover this later on in depth. There's so many people trying to do it. Okay. I'm not a content creator by choice. It's kind of a necessity. We're trying to get our message out there. But there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do this. I really don't know why. And it's in all industries or whatever, But one of the things I see a lot of people talking about is inoculating clover when you buy it. Well, there might be some companies out there that don't inoculate their clover. Ours comes inoculated. But the big thing is that's all that's on that clover. Okay, and I am beating a dead horse, and I'm going to beat this dead horse till I can't beat this dead horse anymore. We do not have seed coating on our clovers, and a lot of that seed coating is just lime. Okay, ours has a powdered inoculant on it, and it's less than 1% inert matter. If you are shopping for clover right now, if you're listening or you're watching, and a lot of you that follow us, you've heard this line before. Look at the dang seed tag. Okay, if you buy a Northwoods product, it's less than 1%, or not organic matter. It's less than 1% inert matter. If you look at the big buck seed companies, you go to Tractor Supply right now, and there's two that stand out like a sore thumb. The seed coating is over 30%, and you do not need it. I don't care what bro staff tells you. You don't need seed coating. We've gone head to head with these clovers. There's nothing wrong with our germination rates. Okay, you do not need to add anything to our clover. You buy a bag of clover from us, it's ready to go into the ground. That is, I don't know if it's an old wives' tale or just a misconception, but I think so many people that are trying to do this, they see this and they run with this and make it part of their information and whatever. And I think Northwoods, the thing I love about this company is we don't fit the mold of all these other seed companies. Okay, and I just want to really make that point clear. We're different than everybody else. And like I said, our clovers do not need inoculant added to them. Just take them out of the bag and plant them. That's kind of like, and I'll hit this probably on our next question session. We're going to get real heavy on the switchgrass because we're getting a lot of switchgrass questions. It's kind of like the same thing there. People call and ask, they message us, do I need to stratify your switchgrass? You know, so and so on YouTube. This YouTube star said you got to stratify the switchgrass, and this person over here on social media at Facebook said you got to stratify switchgrass. You do not need to do that with our seed. Our seed is ready to come out of the bag, go into the ground, and it's going to hit the ground running as soon as the soil warms up, as long as you have moisture. You do not need to inoculate our clover. You do not need to stratify our switchgrass. So, all right, 15 minutes. I really like this format. Like I said, I think we've got over 100 questions we want to go over. There were 6 or 7 there. So if you've got a question watching YouTube, by all means, ask them in the comments below. If you're on the podcast, you can go to northwoodswhitetails.com. You can go into that lower icon in the lower right-hand corner. Click on that. That comes right to us. We might even actually be able to answer it. But again, a lot of these come in right now because there's so many people. They want to enhance their property or they're frustrated with their current setup, folks. This is our busiest time of year for answering these questions. And our emails, our text messages, phone calls, we're getting all sorts of them. So I thought, you know what? I want to do this series where we're answering your questions. And I think that's going to help a lot of people that might not want to reach out to us, but we're going to answer a lot of questions they may have. So again, if you've got questions, by all means, get a hold of us. If you've not already, please subscribe, whether it's the YouTube channel or the podcast. We've got a lot of great information coming. We're going to start talking with our partners, Jake Ellinger, Roger Sampson at Reap Canada, our friends at the Whitetail Partners. We've got a lot of people. We want to kind of pick their brain and get their understanding of how they approach their food plots and their habitat setups. I think I cannot wait to talk to Roger with the RC line of switchgrass. They got a lot of cool stuff coming, so I'm hoping to get that done in the next 2 weeks. So everybody on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Everybody on the podcast, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you all next week.